we? Oh, it's sharing. Sorry. Oh, goodness. There you go. It's 10:30. We're going to go ahead and get started. We want to thank you for being here and just help celebrate Ms. Lauren Kachel on her journey to becoming a pre-service teacher or pre-service candidate. We have 3 questions that she's going to answer in our 30 minutes together. Who does she aspire to be as a teacher? What opportunities is she engaged in to become a better ag teacher? And how is she prepared to maximize her student teaching internship? We will ask for questions from the online audiences. Ms. Kendra Flood will be helping us translate those. So whenever the time comes, please put those in the chat and she will ask those out loud. Lauren, when the question time comes, we also ask that you repeat the questions so the online audience can hear those.
Okay.
With that, the time is yours.
Awesome. Well, welcome to my final presentation. I'm glad you all are here. Very happy to see everybody. The title of my final presentation is Agriculture Education. Basically, I titled it that because we are answering 3 questions, like Dr. Curry said, and I never thought I would really be an ag ed 4 years ago, but now I am. So, yeah. First things first, I have a virtual handout, so if any of you guys want to scan that and access some of the documents I have online, please do that now. And then you can give me a thumbs up when you access it. All right. First question is, who do I want to be as an agriculture teacher? Essentially, what is my ideal agriculture program and what is my ideal teaching strategy / philosophy / teaching methods? First things first, my teaching philosophy. So this is the diagram of what I think my teaching philosophy encompasses. My foundation is going to be, or my stepping point is going to be coworker collaboration. So talking with other agriculture educators and other teachers that I'm working with, and that will back up my curriculum and my teaching methods and teaching style. And as I go through my teaching style, I'm going to focus on agriculture and I'm going to have a student interest-centered learning. So the learning will be centered around student interest and what they want to learn. I'm going to believe in my students, and by talking to other educators, I'll be able to know more ways in which I can believe in my students and show them that I believe in them. And then hands-on and experiential learning in FFA and SAE also goes along with that. And all of these aspects come out in the very end to create agricultural advocates as my students who are agriculturally literate and can make informed decisions in their daily lives about agriculture. My posters, I'll start off with my classroom consequences poster. This is my classroom management kind of plan. I based this off of the 4 steps in Tri-Valley's student handbook. So the first step is discussion with the teachers, myself. I have a green circle as kind of it's a little bit of a warning, but you're still kind of in the green. Next is the visit to the principal's office. You've got a yellow triangle as kind of a little bit more of a pop and a warning. Next, you have a crazy orange squiggle, and that's meeting with parents and administrators. And then the last one is a crazy red doodle, and that's detention. And detention can also go along with meeting with parents and administrators in some cases. When any of these symbols are drawn on the board, students will know that that's not good. My classroom procedures. Pass this around. My classroom procedures are when the students first come into class, they're going to focus in on the class. So they're going to pay attention to class and not look on their phones or on their electronic devices. They're going to focus in on the bell work, which is the second step. which is usually 2 or 3 questions that they can answer or write notes on their notebook paper. And then after the time for bell work is complete, I will give them directions and they should be able to listen to those instructions. The 4th step is that they'll participate in class. This is a big one for me. If students are not participating, they're not learning to the best of what content I'm providing them. And then the last one, they'll complete the exit ticket. I'm planning on having an exit ticket for every lesson that I teach because it gives me an understanding of what they learned and also summarizes their learning for themselves so they can write it down. And then my last poster is the classroom expectations. I think this one's my favorite one. I like the design of it. The first one is actively participate, kind of in reference to classroom procedures. Again, if students are participating, they're not learning as much. The second one is being professional. If students are being disrespectful or inappropriate in any kind of way, this should be an expectation. And these expectations I have for myself as well as my students. So I'm going to hold myself to the same standards as my students. And then number 3, respect peers and their teachers. So I expect my students to respect myself and their other teachers as well, not just myself, and also their peers. So that looks like using their own work and not plagiarizing. Number 4, do your best. I expect my students to do their best, to at least try to do their best. If students are not trying, if they're not trying to do their best, they're not going to be believing themselves and ultimately not living up to their full potential. And number 5, ask questions. I want to set a atmosphere of humility in my classroom where it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to be wrong, it's okay to not know something. And this ultimately enhances learning for, honestly, myself and my students. Next is my model program curriculum. I have FFA, classroom instruction, and SAE all on the same level. I want them to all have equal parts in my model program curriculum. However, stemming from the classroom instruction, I'm going to have animal science, plant science, environmental science and natural resources, and then ag mechanics. And then beneath each of those 4 areas, I'll have 2 main content areas that I will focus on different courses. And then labs in the classroom. I am very passionate about frequent labs and hands-on work. I know I learn a lot from hands-on work, and I know other people do as well, so I think it's an aspect that's very, very, very important to have. I do have this tool and a lab management plan along with it that I hope to use in my classroom in the future. It is a plant tool. I have sat on it. It holds me and a few other people, but it a craft. So I will use that as a learning experience for my students in the future. I did epoxy it back together, so it's intact. And then for SAE, I have 3 components stemming into what my main SAE is. The top one is SAE courses, or one course that I'm going to have students take who are in the agriculture program. And I'll have a monthly check of their hours and entries into AUT. And those hours and entries can come from experiential classroom instruction, or they'll come from outside SAE projects. And then my ideal FFA integration, I'm going to have recruitment and fundraising that will help the community know about our program and will help us be involved in the community. And then flipping down to the bottom, we'll have service learning. So we'll be doing community service, but that's community service going to be service learning. So the students will be learning something from it as well. And then they'll also be learning from CP competitions and FFA conventions, whether that's state or national level. And then for program recruitment, my high school, my alma mater, growing up did not have very good recruitment. So I am very, very passionate about letting others, especially younger middle school students, know about the FFA and agriculture program in high school. So I'd have my high school students go and present to middle school students, probably during PSSA testing time. And then also fundraisers and school-wide events, I would have those and welcome a lot of different students, whether high school or middle school students, to come in and see what we're all about. And as well as recruitment videos. This is a recruitment video that a few of my classmates and I created. Kind of fun. For program community involvement, I am planning on having a community-based unit of instruction, or a CBU, in woodworking, welding, or vegetable production. So for those 3 classes, they would create a woodworking project, a welding project, or grow vegetables using the aquaponic system that would then be given back to the community. And then of applying for grants, bringing in guest speakers, and then going on local field trips to local farms or businesses, or the way that I do that. What educational experiences have I had? How do I know what I know? 4 classes that I really love. The main one is at 115A, Teaching American Education. I love that class. I took it at Penn State first. Some course assignments that I've done are the program planning handbook and the lab management plan, which I did this past semester, actually this semester. I found those very, very, very helpful. My certifications. I am certified as a level 1 archery instructor and as a lifeguard with CPR and AED. I'm also certified in CPR and AED from the American Heart Association alone, and then an NSTMOP instructor, which is National Safe Tractor Machinery Operator. So for professional development workshops, I went to the Inquiry Institute with Penn State this past fall, and also NAAE and ACTE in New Orleans. I have some pictures. The Inquiry Institute. And then as far as external related experiences, I did raise my own land. I was on the Penn State First Equestrian team my sophomore year. I have worked on numerous farms and AFNR jobs. I worked in summer camp this past summer, volunteered as the chairman of the Barnyard Academy Kids Tent at the Everett Fair, and participated in the 2021. Here's some pictures of me and my land. I named them Hillbilly and Bobby Joe. I ended up winning Grand Champion, Grand Reserve Champion. I'm very, very happy about that. So this is my experience on the dairy farm back home. No spring farms on my shirt. That picture of me feeding a calf is at the Penn State Dairy Barns. And then the 2 middle pictures are working on landscape crew my freshman year of college. That's a picture of the Barnyard Academy. That's a picture from me in high school, but it's the same layout that I would have set up two falls ago. And then summer camp. I worked there this past summer, got certified in archery and lifeguarding then, and also worked as a nature instructor. I'm guiding a fishing lesson on the right, and then also worked as the Pioneer program team leader. So that's the program from 7 to 9-year-old children. They come, I got to organize the schedule and lead the counselors and children's program. As far as accommodating diverse learners in my classroom, I plan on utilizing a lot of culturally responsive teaching, as well as variability and flexibility on my part. I want to be able to be flexible so that I can accommodate my students and not just stick to my one rigid way of teaching that doesn't accommodate lots of different students. And then International Agriculture 100 and Port 101 were huge classes for me that encompassed a lot of international agriculture, which is something I'm really passionate about, and I want to share a lot of that in my classroom, whether my students are very diverse or not, because I think it's something that they should know about. The third question, how have I prepared for student teaching? What will my student teaching experience look like? I have a video about my cooperating semester.
It's shared.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gretchen Dingman at the wheel. There are rough. The Tri-Valley High School and its agriculture program are located in Higgins, Pennsylvania, with Mrs. Gretchen Dingman at the wheel. There are roughly 100 to 125 students total enrolled in the agriculture program, which then translates to how many members are enrolled in the FFA chapter. The school itself provides some really awesome tools and equipment for students to invest in their learning about agriculture. Some of this equipment includes welding booths, stick and MIG welding equipment, a plasma cutter, and a wood shop. The school also has a really large aquaponics system, a growing tower, a tractor, and a stretch of woods with a pond behind the school. Within the agriculture program at Tri-Valley, there's also one classroom with desks and a laptop cart. Because of the great facilities, there's a number of diverse courses in agriculture taught at Tri-Valley, but the program focuses largely around ag mechanics, aquaculture, and animal science, specifically dairy science. Throughout the second half of the school year in the spring, I will be teaching 22 total units on topics such as welding, woodworking, aquaponics, dairy science, and small gas engines.
So that's a little bit about Tri-Valley, where I'll be student teaching this next semester. That's a little about my conference centers, student teaching placement in Tri-Valley. As far as the evaluation of my cooperating center before I start teaching there and what I've observed so far from my 4 visits, for AU 295, there's a lot of classroom instruction and SAE and FFA involvement. I'd say they're all pretty equal, which I really, really like about the program. They're very connected with the community and with other agriculture programs in the area. I know they have an event in the spring where a bunch of FFA programs and ag programs in the area come together and kind of just like hang out and mingle. And I think that's a really awesome thing. Also, they have really great fundraisers and activities for the students to be involved in and feel a part and feel like active members of the program. My courses and units. On the virtual handout, there is an example of one of my units and one of my lessons. The courses I will be teaching are 8th grade ag rotation, ag science 2, 3, and 4, which is periods 3 and 6. So I'll be teaching that twice throughout the day. Wood tech, aquaponics, ag practicum, small gas engines, welding, and ag science 1, which is next grade. The ag science 2, 3, and 4 is mainly going to be dairy topics, dairy science, and then small gas engines and welding are in an A-B rotation. So A days I will be teaching small gas engines, and B days I'll be teaching welding. The first week is all observation. The last week I'm only teaching ag careers for the 8th grade ag rotation. I am planning on, unit planning. Anyway, unit planning, I'm planning on having a unit plan for the units that I teach. That's necessary, as well as a lesson plan for every lesson that I teach. I will look off of those as I teach throughout the semester, and will have them with me in every lesson every day, so that I am teaching exactly what I planned and exactly what the students need and not getting off topic. I want to provide my students with the best content possible, and that means planning ahead of time. After this past semester and some of the labs and some of the teaching experience that I've had, especially in AU 412, I kind of an evaluation of my strengths. I'd say that I'm very enthusiastic. I love to laugh, love to make my students laugh. I had some pretty funny conversations with some of my students during my life knowledge lesson up at Tri Valley. I do love leadership. I think it's important for students to have a sense of somebody in classroom that they can look up to, but also who has a sense of humility, like in the bottom right corner, that can stand beneath them and build them up in kind of a service leadership kind of model. I think I'm also pretty good at classroom management. I got a lot of practice with that this past summer at the camp I worked at. I wouldn't say I'm too afraid, wouldn't say that I'm not afraid of my students because I've had a lot of experience managing them, managing their behavior and keeping them on task. And then also implementing variability and a growth mindset. I love variability. I love accommodating different types of learners. I know it puts kind of more strain on myself as a teacher, but I think for students it's very important to have because there are so many different kinds of learners with so many different kinds of strengths. So it's important for me to be able to implement that variability and having a growth mindset along with the humility allows me to grow and to learn and be a better teacher for my students. And lastly, my growth goals. My personal goals are to manage my work and my home life equally. I don't want to spend all of my time at work, but I don't want to spend all of my time away from work either. I want to get connected with the community at Tri Valley. They have a very, very, very big football program, so going to football games is something that I really want to do, as well as getting in contact with some of the big local businesses. Thirdly, I like to manage my stress levels and mental health well. It can get kind of busy as an IT teacher, as I've heard, so that is another goal of mine. As far as my professional goals, I'd like to network with other teachers at Tri Valley and outside of Tri Valley, so I can meet that model that I had in my teaching philosophy earlier in the presentation. And then I'd like to bring at least one guest speaker into a class from the community. That's a big goal for me in my student teaching experience. And then I'd like to help plan or go on at least one trip with my cooperating center that my students with recommendations. So those are my goals. I want to thank you all for coming and thank you for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Lauren. Kendra's going to help us translate the audience questions that are on the online community. So whenever that time comes, we'll look over to her for questions. So please put those in the chat boxes. Lauren, I'll start us out with, I would love for you to provide a specific example of, we know that students come from different backgrounds and they're interested in agriculture in lots of different ways, and interest plays a huge part in baseline motivation. Provide me a concrete example of how you anticipate motivating students who on the peripheral don't really care too much about the content of agriculture. How do you expect to motivate them in the classroom?
I plan to motivate students who may not be too interested in agriculture by providing projects and posters and that kind of thing that they can take their own interests and put into them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be agricultural content that they're creating about the project about, but just that it's in some way related to the content that I've taught. So these are the final assessments of units. That's what I would do.
Have one question from Tiffany Lori from New Jersey. Question for Lauren: what activities have you participated in or plan to participate in to help improve your comfort level and knowledge of ag content areas that you are not as familiar with?
Well, definitely course content and state. I know that's kind of not optional. I had to do that, but AE 350 and AgMech the previous year were definitely things that brought me out of my comfort zone and allowed me to learn more about ag mechanics.
Lauren, if you have to go back to your first year of college, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to yourself back then, thinking of the road you traveled since?
I would the advice I would give myself would be to believe in myself more. And not only just to believe in myself more, but to have the gumption to plan things ahead of time. Things pile up very, very quickly and very, very easily. And looking back, I think I would have told myself to plan and manage my time and instead of doing things that aren't necessary.
I'd love to build off that question if you don't mind. And I'd like to know some of your tips and tricks that you picked up to better organize yourself and better manage that time now.
Some of the tips and tricks, as you said, that I picked up to try and manage my time are lots of different calendars and lists. I love making lists and making post-it notes. It keeps, sometimes my mind gets so jumbled and I have so many thoughts in my head that like I forget some of them. So writing them down, having them all legible where I can't forget them and where I have somewhere that I can actually remember them. That's a good way to remember all my assignments and kind of manage my time like that. As well as creating calendar, like I said previously, and I create a Google Calendar as well as a classroom planner that I can manage when I do my assignments, what days, kind of what times, and that helps keep me accountable a little bit for getting those assignments done in the time that I want them.
Thank you.
There's some questions online. Dylan Clark has 2 questions. First, what is one course that you grew to grow in? And how can you lean on your cohort members for support in those areas?
Well, I will list 2 courses that I have room to grow in. Small gas engines and the 2 welding courses that I'm teaching are definitely places that I need to grow and need to know more content knowledge about. And I think one way that I could lean on my cohort members is to ask them questions and ask them if they have any advice for teaching that subject or any advice for knowing more about it and gaining more experience in that.
One more on Zoom. That's Kachel. What do you think is a current challenge within ag education and how do you hope to address that challenge?
I'd say for current teachers, one of the biggest challenges is stress management and being able to stay calm and collected despite having a pile of things to do, and also staying passionate about what they do despite having that high amount of stress if they do have that high amount of stress. That's,
How do you hope to address that challenge?
I hope to address that by, actually, this is a strategy I heard about and learned about at the National Association of Agriculture Educators Convention. Setting 30 minutes aside every day to use for yourself to just kind of de-stress, whether that's exercising, reading a book, journaling, whatever. I guess it's a game changer in managing your stress and passion for agriculture.
So Lauren, you mentioned about having a specific SAE course in your, future plan. How would you teach SAE or interact with SAE for students that maybe couldn't fit that course into their school schedule?
I would have it as an after-school course, so they are still submitting assignments, but it's not actually set in their school schedule, if that makes sense. So I'd still be doing the checks, I'd still be recording their experiences in AUT, but it wouldn't necessarily be during school, and whatever ag classes they are taking, they could use those hours to put into their SAE reports.
So I'd like you to explain to me the actions you could take as a teacher and instructor to ensure that those lab activities you mentioned being important to you could be successful in an instructional setting. What could you do as a teacher to make sure that the hands-on lab activities could be successful for your instruction?
One way I could ensure, or 2 ways that I could ensure that labs in my classroom would be successful is by doing the demonstration before having students do the lab. And that way they know what is expected of them, and then they can go and do it themselves and have that experiential hands-on learning. And then I'd also give them worksheets to guide them through the lab, and that way they would have a clear set of expectations. If the worksheet was created in a way that was clear and the expectations were clear for the students.
Okay, I have one for you. So describe for me the professional dispositions of an excellent educator.
Could you define this position?
Sure. Merriam-Webster says one's character, characteristic, attitude, or mood. So one's characteristic, attitude, or mood. So how you, yeah, your temperament. Way to say it.
I would say that an outstanding educator, agricultural or not, should be calm and collected in the classroom and not show stress from outside factors into the classroom. They should leave their home life behind, step into the classroom with a fresh mindset, and teach the students in a way that they are calm. They're passionate about what they teach, so the students can be passionate about it as well. And they're also empathetic and understanding towards the students when the students are stressed about a certain topic or don't understand something.
So I just want to pry a little bit more. So thinking back to our 18413 class early in the fall, where it was so beautiful, we actually did an outdoor class session on the stairs out here. I shared with you the Penn State teacher education conceptual framework. And part of that talked about dispositions of our candidates, what we're trying to accomplish through our teacher education program at Penn State writ large, like not just ag ed, but all of teacher ed. Do you remember anything on that conceptual framework that would also speak to the types of dispositions that we're trying to have our candidates think about and work towards?
As far as what is like on the conceptual framework for Penn State, I think I vaguely remember something about professionalism being on there and being a professional in a classroom, setting boundaries between students and teacher, which is very, very, very vital and important in the teaching profession. And then as well as regarding high academics as very, very important in the classroom. So you're setting high expectations for your students and expecting them to try their best as what's on them.
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Any questions for our panel from the audience?
What would you identify as your primary contribution to the cohort?
I think my contribution to the cohort hasn't been as strong as I'd like it to be, but I would say that I am always there for people to listen to and to offer advice and encouragement. I love to encourage people. So whenever people are feeling down or feeling low, I'd love to bring them up and.
Thank you.
So other questions? Please join me in congratulating. This will conclude the public portion of the examination. We'll continue here further. Our next presentation will start at 1:30 with Ms. Gabby Kryler. Hope to see you all then.